Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to talk about Fathers of Nations. And Fathers of Nations, it's a novel. It normally takes 4 years. 4 years in high school once it has been introduced for curriculum purpose. The author of Fathers of Nations is Paul B. Vita. And when you talk about Fathers of Nations, now the introduction of Fathers of Nations. Fathers of Nations, we have the author. You must know the author, as I've said. As I've already mentioned, it is Paul B. Vita. And the introduction, this Paul B. Vita, we must know the person. Paul B. Vita was behind the Fathers of Nations and is literally is a scholar who was born in Tanzania. He received his doctorate degree in physics from Emory University and was also a professor at the University of Dar es Salaam and later worked for African Religion Center for Technology in Senegal. Paul B. Vita also spent some part of his life in Canada, where of course he worked in the International Development Research Center. Before he retired, Paul B. Vita became a director of UNESCO's Religion Office for Science and Technology Africa. So this introduction, why is it important for us to know the introduction? The introduction helps us to see the person who wrote this set book was somebody learned. Uh, so anything that he intended to put across was all about the life and the things he has seen across the countries. Now, what about the book? Now, the book, it's literally a piece which has been written by Paul B. Vita, as I've mentioned before, and it has been published by Oxford University Press, of course, a department of the University of Oxford, and it revolves around the lives of four strangers. Of course, my good student, you know these strangers. There were four. We have Professor Kimani, Comrade Melusi. We have Engineer Saif Tahir. Very interesting strangers. We have Pastor Chineke Chiamaka, of course, from Nigeria. Generally, this novel has got an idea, and it's all about a summit. My good students, you know, a summit, like it's a meeting, and that is was to be held in the capital of Gambia, Banjul, at the Pinnacle Hotel. Some of the world's best researchers have discovered a way to develop Africa. And this a document titled The Way Omega and Africa's Heads of State are at summit to approve it, and if approved, it will change the Africa's economic structures and Africa will develop immediately. However, they are aggrieved conspirators who are plotting to defeat Way Omega, and they plan to have it uh, uh, mm, mm, with an arrival strategy called Path Alpha, the only way. Now, the Way Omega development strategy, this is a document that some leaders believe to be a development agenda, as it will see that Africa develops. The Way Omega ideology is a plan for overcoming current and future challenges in Africa, and is fronted by one Minister Pinto. The strategy will enable African nations to continue getting support through aid and grants from donors. Africa's Minister of Planning, of course, liked the Way Omega strategy after having a look at it, and the summit meeting now was planned to be held so that the African countries adopt it as a common strategy for development. The main idea for this strategy we are calling Way Omega. This Way Omega development strategy. One, the main ideas it had was to change Africa's politics, and number two, it was to end Africa's misery. Now let us go straight to Path Alpha development strategy. The Path Alpha development strategy. Path Alpha, of course, we know it's a rival development strategy that the Agency for Governance, the agency HDA, Agency for Governance and Development in Africa, is a superior alternative to Way Omega. Unknown to the summit, of course, it was unknown to the summit. HDA now plans, this HDA has got these four strangers, they are the members, plans now to slip this strategy, the Path Alpha, in to have it replace the Way Omega during the summit or the meeting. The pioneers believe that this strategy will solve the problems some present heads of state find difficult to solve. Most of them, of course, have suffered and they have undergone some abuse, and they have suffered a lot. They have walked through different paths in their lives. Now let us go to the forward. Forward. Now the book begins with the forward. Of course, before you reach page 1, we have a forward. The book begins with a forward that outlines its purpose, Fathers of Nations. It begins with the man caught selling confidential documents marked for 100 years only. Nobody was supposed to see documents except the 50 heads of state who attended the summit in Gambia's capital of Banjul. These heads of state later in the day boycotted the closing ceremony of the summit organized by Gambia, and Gambian news had it that the boycott had nothing to do with the man who was earlier caught selling the top secret documents. The boycott was a result of the disagreement among the heads of state, but not surprisingly to the Gambians, the man caught by the guard selling their confidential documents ended up disappearing and not being seen again. Gambians rated the summit as the most successful, despite the criticism and negative comments from the heads of state. Alice, my good student, will find another videos related to Fathers of Nations, but for now it's a pleasure.